Update. My 33 female husband, 40 male, is considering conceiving a child with his ex. Original post. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, I need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it is a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling, but I am still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving, and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together, and I have been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year and got along very well. My stepson's bio mom and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial/respectful on the rare times we interacted and never had any issue with one another. My husband and bio mom are similarly cordial/respectful and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. The ex is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught, and I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that his ex approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI/IVF as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing, even wanting to do, but knows he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child for our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I am thinking of suggesting we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm. And quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what the ex and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, she is 41 years old, so there is a high probability this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level advice from people outside the situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this, without making it a point of contention. Now for the top advice before reading the updates. Yeah, this is a big no. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they might not be thinking rationally. But having another child to replace one you all lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you are undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age/viability out and that you think it would impact your marriage. Then the intricacies of co-parenting said child would also make you uncomfortable. It's terrible that you are all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. I think most doctors would insist on counseling first before allowing this due to the circumstances, even if OP had been okay. There are rules, and trying to replace a child ticks boxes. Oh no. No, 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 no. I'm so sorry for this loss for everyone involved. Your husband and his ex need major therapy. This loss is too fresh and raw to be thinking about this kind of decision. If all she wanted was to be a parent, there are a myriad of ways she could do that. It sounds more like she's trying to recreate or replace the child she lost. That's a recipe for disaster for any child's emotional and mental health. This would be an absolutely not. Bad idea for everyone. Literally everyone. Therapy. What an immense burden to put on that hypothetical child too. Can you imagine? Mom wants to basically try and clone her deceased son. But what if the replacement baby turns out to be female? Or doesn't look like the late brother enough? Or has a totally different personality? I can just picture the kid having to hear daily, "Your brother would never have done that. Your brother never behaved this way," etc. It's like when parents of a medically fragile child decide to have another one to use for spare parts. Edit. Thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave, very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine, so I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating the situation. I would just add that I am fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support, so even had the specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some, if not all, of that to the ex-wife since it was always intended to go to her and son. Anyway, I will keep reading through replies. Thank you again. And at this point, plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling it is inappropriate to consider this now, and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. Now for the first update. Thank you again to the blunt takes in my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control, reaching out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counselor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what the ex had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in ex's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months, and envisioned life as a father of 2, and it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing a son. His ex's request was a total shock for him too. And when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help/a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment. So I am hopeful that will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with his ex, but we'll still consider what sort of short-term/lump sum financial support makes sense, with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of the ex. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver. And yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortably but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative and I do respect that. I really don't know much about X as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there's a lot still up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice. But I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. I am glad father-in-law was able to talk some sense into your husband. I am truly sorry for what you guys are facing. With respect to compensation, I admire you for your willingness to extend that to her even after what she had asked. I understand grief is a very powerful thing, but lines have been crossed nonetheless. Wish you luck, OP, and sorry for your loss. I worry the ex has become too reliant on the child support and doesn't believe she can provide for herself, or just plain doesn't want to do so, and that was a big part of her asking for another child from the same father, who has a good career and would provide ample child support. I don't agree with giving her any more compensation, but it's OP's money to waste. A good therapist can help put her in touch with the right resources to help her readjust. The lack of compassion I'm seeing in this and Opie's other thread for a parent who lost their child is astounding. And I can't help but think that the respondents are just young and haven't developed much emotional maturity. No parent should ever outlive their child. Hear me out. I'm prepared for downvotes. I think what the ex asked of is extremely inappropriate, and no way should your husband go through with it. However, she is grieving terribly as she lost her child. And the only other person who loved that child as much as her is your husband. So while I think that of course you shouldn't use his sperm for insemination, I don't think you both should cut contact with her. You co-parented with her. You shared love for this child. Maybe offer your support yet establish boundaries. Now for the last update. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts, and thought it would be easiest to update here for those that ask because it's a wild development. So, I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about his ex's request. The truth being that they had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea they had done this, and likely would have never known if not for the fact that the ex did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So that's it. That's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. So he agreed to let her use the frozen embryos without your knowledge. It is only letting you know now that the implantation is successful? I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. But what about you? Were you guys still actively trying for a baby? Yes, I'm now questioning a lot about what he relayed to me regarding his past and general communication with his ex. It seems like they maybe always had some kind of understanding that she could utilize the embryos when she wanted, regardless of my stepson's passing. I even think that weirdly, she thought I was aware of this or something. But yeah, we stopped trying after my stepson's passing. Of course, I can't imagine also being pregnant at this time, so I know that's for the best. But yeah, I honestly feel really embarrassed to be involved in this, like some kind of third wheel. I'm mad, and I'm really, really sad. And sad for their future child. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I was hoping it was done without his knowledge. I understand that the ex and your partner are grieving, but this is a big lifetime decision that your partner excluded you on. You went into the relationship knowing about your stepson and that was your choice to accept. But in this situation, it seems that you have been refused that. What does this decision mean for you and your husband? What does he have to say? He just said he didn't expect to meet someone like me. He didn't want to lose me. So he basically compartmentalized things and hoped for the best. It all kind of feels like variations of lies now though. I wish more than anything that all this could have come to light without my stepson's passing being the catalyst. No one is anywhere close to accepting that grief of that at this point. I plan to let my husband and his ex move on with that. Without me though. How did he think he was going to get away with this? I get that your husband and his ex are grieving, but this is basically a screw you to your marriage. He lied to you. Is he now going to go to all the antenatal classes, attend a birth and have 50% custody? You signed up for it the first time around. This is an entirely different scenario. Has he now decided to start putting your own family on the back burner because he can't cope with 2 babies at once? I'm so indignant on your behalf. I honestly thought you had it sorted at your first update. The only way I think you could salvage your relationship at this point is if he signs his rights away as a sperm donor and is not on the baby's birth certificate. I'm mortified at how hopeful my previous post reads. I feel quite set in filing for divorce as soon as I can get myself out of bed. I'm not fit to be a stepmom or a wife anymore. Now for the last story. I, 30 male, and my wife, 26 female, are trying to figure out what to do about her parent, 50 male, unable to work. Hey y'all, my recently married wife and I are in a bit of a bind, and I'm just looking for a little perspective. Her dad has always been a bit eccentric, and ultimately an issue is that he lives off of social security and is not willing to pursue any kind of employment. He has always kind of floated place to place, declared bankruptcy when the cards got maxed, etc. to make it work. At this point, everyone but us and his family has effectively cut him off. His current situation is, His expenses are higher than his social security income, and he is heading to another bankruptcy. He is already having significant issues finding places to live and has stayed in some pretty sketchy areas. Unfortunately, I will tell you now that he will not take any action and is going to take no effort to course correct. He will just dodge bills, collections, etc. for as long as he can. My new wife wants him to move in with us so that way he can be taken care of, but I am a little hesitant. I do understand that aging parents and taking care of them is a thing in marriage, and maybe I am just selfish, but I am a bit frustrated with him. Again, he has more or less told her that it is her fault if he ends up homeless, and it is in our means to have him move in, but I feel he should take some kind of effort to resolve his own situation. He is the type that will never leave the house during the day, and while my wife says it will be temporary, I do not believe he would ever move out willingly down the line. Other people he moved in within his family had to take drastic legal action to evict him. I feel guilty for having these reservations, and I know I need to step up to do the right thing by my wife. If it was my parent, I would want her to help, but the situation seems frustrating. I wish there was another way to help him out, but he has been living this way for 10 plus years, and is unlikely to ever change. Now for the advice. Absolutely do not let him move in. He'll never leave, and his presence will destroy your marriage. He's only 50 and already on Social Security? Is he disabled? Perhaps you can help your wife research facilities where he could be placed. Help her help him. But again, do not let him stay with you, not even for one night. He is disabled to a degree due to arthritis, but he's still entirely fine to live on his own, go to appointments, etc. as a self-sufficient adult. He just chooses not to do anything to better his own situation and relies on someone to eventually bail him out. You know, if you allow him to move in, he will not leave. This will also hamper any bedroom time with your wife. Tough love may be the only way forward. You cannot help someone unwilling to help themselves. I think it will hamper our quality of life for sure. My biggest concern is my wife wants this, and I know morally it is the right thing to do. But it seems very unfair to be in this situation just because he doesn't want to change his situation.